Hey folks, welcome to TheyMightBeRacing.com. Today what we're going to do is build a mount for your video camera in your car. Now, I've been thinking about this for a long time now, and it wasn't until I stumbled across a really neat little video by Paco Warabi on YouTube on how to make the mount for your camera. So armed with that information from him, what I figured out how to do is to build a very rudimentary mount that is a pressure fit. Should work on just about any car, and since I'm often driving many different cars, I wanted to make something that I could modify or modularize in such a fashion so that it works for just about anything I drive. So what we're going to do is start off by following his instructions, which were to build the mount itself. So what you start with is a 1/4 inch bolt that is 1 3/4 inches long, 1 inch fender washer. Now his original instructions said he use just a regular PVC coupling. They're a little short for my taste, and the other thing is the lip on the interior is not broad enough so you can pull the bolt through. So what I've used here is actually one side coupling, one side threaded. You drop the bolt in there, you set the larger 1.25 inch fender washer over top, take a 1/4 inch nut. This is all coarse thread, and tighten that down. And then from there, you take a 1 1/4 inch cover. I pre-drilled it with the 7/32 drill bit, as mentioned in the video, and then you thread it on. Now, the one trick to keep in mind is when you thread it on, you want to make sure that the nut on both sides is good and tight, otherwise you're going to have some difficulty threading it on. You can also use a socket on the end of that to keep it going. Now, once you've got your basic coupling, the next thing you need to do is the whole mounting system. Well, what I decided to do was use the old tried and true method that car salesmen have used for years to put hang clothing in cars, which is an expansion rack across. But in order to keep the camera from tipping forwards and backwards, we're going to add a third leg to it that reaches down. So we're starting out with your basic 4-way PVC. All of this stuff is 3/4 inch. And what I did is from there I went and I took a look at all the cars and I said, what's the widest span that I can safely run and still fit the core into all the cars? It turns out it's around 3 feet. That gives me enough room to get into just about everything. So what I did, after measuring this down, and then measuring the threaded couplings that will go on either side, what I needed to do was figure out how much PVC to run. So I measured that out, pre-cut my pieces here. Now you'll note that one piece is longer than the other. I did this on purpose, so I can offset the camera just slightly so I'm not videotaping the back of my shoulder rather than the driving. Pretty much all you want to do at this stage of the game, once you've got everything measured and cut, is dry fit all your connections, dry fit your end couplings. Now keep in mind, at the very end, if you're real happy with how everything fits, I would suggest doing the standard working on your irrigation route, which is using the blue pipe sealant to lock everything together. Now this only gets us, as I said, 3 feet across the car, so how do we get the rest of the way? Well, to match up the threads on our end pieces, we're using the opposite thread couplings, just like we used for the mount, hooking those into shorter pieces of PVC, and this now allows us to connect on to the end to extend it. Now the nice thing about this is because these two pieces thread together, you get roughly 3/4 inch of run back and forth as you thread and unthread the pipe. So that way you can get a really good snug fit against the wall. Now the last item is to make sure it holds against the side of the car well. Initially I thought about just using your basic end cap, but I was concerned about that slipping and sliding and possibly damaging the side of the car. So what I did is I grabbed some of the basic rubber biscuits that you put underneath your furniture, then took a small drywall screw and ran it through so that you've now got a rubberized mount. You press that on, thread that together. Now I gotta actually put together the one for the other side, so I pre-drilled everything, and it should be a simple matter of just screwing the coarse drywall into the rubber biscuit, and then from there into the top. Now the nice thing is when it pulls into the end cap, it actually allows the drywall screw to dimple into the mount, so that's not sticking out to scratch anything. I'm going to build up my opposite side. And then thread this side on. And now what you've got is a full span. This one is actually specifically for the TR8 that I've just bought. What this allows me to do in the future, though, is when I want to mount this in my Studebaker and my Jensen Healy, all I need to do is recut a new piece of PVC to whatever length it needs to be, and either recreate or put it into these mount points. Now, that covers side to side on the car, but if you're like this, and you've got a heavy camera like mine sitting on top, what's that going to do? It's going to tip it. So, we went ahead, got a shorter length, because this is going to sit on the parcel shelf, another rubberized mount, drop that in the bottom, and then that will now set against the bottom of the vehicle, so that'll provide additional stability. So from there, it's simply a matter of taking your mount. Now, you're going coupling to coupling here, so you need one more piece of PVC. Again, this is a measure to taste scenario, so it's whatever you want. And then your final piece is on top, and then you can take your video camera, screw it into the top of this, and mount it in the car. So what I'll do next is take all of this, I'll fit it in the back of the TR8 so you can see what it looks like inside the vehicle. So here I am sitting in my TR8. We're looking in through the rear convertible top window. Now, to get this into the car, it's too long fully assembled. So what I had to do was actually just take one of the adjustable arms off. That way I can get clear of the convertible top, and then once inside the car I can screw it back on. Now what I did, as I mentioned earlier, was originally figured out about where I wanted the tripod to sit. So it's just at the point where it will look out the front of the car but not be looking into my shoulder. It's offset a few inches. And then what I did is I said I wanted the entire width of the unit to be about 3 feet. And so I've got the 3-foot wide unit here. And then what I did is, as I cut everything down and I sized it, and I got my 3-foot measurements, I then just dropped it into the car, centered it, used my tape measure to measure out my distances, and then cut down the PVC to size. Now, sometimes you don't always account well for the gapping inside the PVC plumbing, so it's always easier to cut a little big and then to trim down. So what we do now is screw the outside piece on. Tighten it up so that we can get our fitment just right. And I've got mine designed to go more or less right over top of the seat belts here. So once you've got it fitted correctly, you can then use the threads to increase the tension back and forth across the line. Fit your cap. And the final step is to take the video camera and mount it on the unit. So later tonight, after I do a little bit more goofing around with the car, I'll actually get to go finally put the camera in the car and go for a ride and shoot a video of what it's like driving my new TR8. Neat thing is that for the space of roughly $20, half of the stuff I had in my garage already from doing my irrigation system, you can have a nice little mount in your car for your video camera. If you want, obviously white PVC is not exactly the most attractive thing in the world. There is plastic paint you can get. You just clean this off with mineral spirits, give it a good wipe down, maybe hit it a little bit with some 600 grit sandpaper to roughen it up a little bit, and spray paint it. whatever color matches your car.